Welcome to DevOps with Typical Monk. Class 1. What is DevOps really? Here's a story you may recognize. For years, building software and running it were two separate worlds. Developers wrote the code and threw it, as the saying went, over the wall to an operations team, whose job was to keep it alive in production. The two sides barely spoke. When something broke, and it always did, the developer said, "Well, it works on my machine," and operations said, "Well, it is your code." And the customer just waited while they argued. Releases were rare, manual, and so terrifying that companies did them at 2 in the morning on a weekend, praying nothing would go wrong. Deploying software felt less like engineering and more like defusing a bomb. And everyone dreaded the day it was their turn. DevOps is the movement that tore that wall down. And here is the first and most important thing to understand. DevOps is not a tool you install, not a single job you hire for, not a piece of software you buy. It is a culture and a set of practices that unite development and operations into one continuous flow. So a team can ship faster and stay stable at the very same time. Over this course, we will build DevOps from the ground up, one idea at a time. The culture first, then automation pipelines, containers, the cloud, and monitoring in Hindi and English together. Today, the foundation, where DevOps came from, what it truly means, how modern pipeline and toolchain actually work, and the calms culture at its heart. One idea at a time. Here is the map of today's class. 6 ideas that turn DevOps from a buzzword into something you genuinely understand. First, the old world, the wall between dev and ops, and the pain it caused. Second, the history, how software delivery evolved from Waterfall to Agile to DevOps. Third, the DevOps loop, the single picture that captures the whole idea. Fourth, the CICD pipeline, how that loop becomes real, automated machinery. Fifth, the calms culture and the toolchain, the values and the tools that serve them. And sixth, the core promise, and who actually does DevOps for a living. One idea at a time. To understand why DevOps matters, you first have to feel the pain it was born to cure. So let us picture the world before it. On the left stood Dev, the developers. Their whole reason for being was change, new features, new fixes, shipped as fast as possible. And their famous phrase, whenever a bug appeared in production, was, "But it works on my machine." Because on their machine, it genuinely did. Between the two sides stood a wall. Not a wall of brick, but a wall of process and blame. Code was written by one team and simply thrown over it to another, with no shared responsibility for what happened next. Each side had its own tools, its own goals, and its own private idea of success. On the right stood Ops, the operations team. Their reason for being was the exact opposite: stability. Keep the system up, keep it safe, and change as little as possible. So when developers pushed new code at them, Ops instinctively resisted and often replied, "Not my code, not my problem." So the takeaway: before DevOps, Dev and Ops worked in separate silos, throwing work over a wall of confusion. One side pushing for change, the other resisting it, and everyone slower and unhappier for it. And the customer, caught in the middle, simply waited for features that took months and fixes that took days, all because the two halves of one team were pulling against each other. DevOps did not appear from nowhere. It was the next step in a long evolution of how we deliver software. Let us trace that journey, because each stage was an answer to the failures of the one before. It began with Waterfall, big, slow, sequential releases. You planned the entire project end to end, then built it, then tested it, then finally shipped it, often a year or more later. The flaw was obvious in hindsight. By the time it arrived, the requirements had already changed, and any mistake made early was baked in deep and expensive to fix. The answer was Agile. Instead of one giant release, Agile shipped in small, frequent increments, a little working software every couple of weeks, with constant feedback from real users. It transformed how developers plan and build. But it left one gap: Agile made development fast, while operations were still slow, manual, and separate. And so came DevOps, which extended Agile spirit across that final wall, uniting development and operations into one team, sharing one goal all the way to production and beyond. Suddenly, the person who wrote the code was also on the hook for how it ran at 3 in the morning. And it is remarkable how much more carefully people build when they, not someone else, will be woken by the pager. The very name says it, Dev plus Ops joined into a single word, because the whole point is that they are no longer two separate things but one continuous responsibility. So the takeaway, software delivery evolved from Waterfall to Agile to DevOps, each stage faster, more iterative, and more united than the last, until the whole path from idea to running software became a single, unbroken flow. If you remember only one image from today, make it this one, the DevOps infinity loop, which captures the entire philosophy in a single shape. One half of the loop is the dev side. You plan what to build, you code it, you build it into something runnable, and you test it to be sure it works. This is the world developers already knew well. The other half is the ops side, but now shared by that same team. You release the tested software, you deploy it to production, you operate it in the real world, and you monitor how it behaves under real users and real load. And here is the crucial part. The reason it is drawn as a loop and not a straight line, it never stops. What you learn from monitoring feeds straight back into planning the next change, and around it goes again, endlessly. There is no finish line and no throwing anything over a wall, just one team going around the loop together, forever improving. This is why you often see DevOps drawn as the infinity symbol, the sideways figure 8, because the work truly has no end. Every release is just the start of learning what to build next. So the takeaway after DevOps, delivery is one continuous loop, where a single team shares the whole life cycle. Plan, code, build, test, release, deploy, operate, monitor, and then immediately begins again. That loop is a philosophy, but philosophies need machinery to make them real. The machinery of DevOps is the CI/CD pipeline, an automated assembly line that carries your code from your keyboard all the way to your users, with as few human hands as possible. Follow it stage by stage. It begins the moment you commit your code. You push a change, and that push automatically triggers a build, where your code is compiled and packaged into something runnable. These first stages are continuous integration, or GACI. Every change is integrated and built automatically, so problems are caught within minutes, not weeks. Next, the pipeline runs your tests automatically, checking that your change did not quietly break something else. And if the tests pass, it releases the build, versions it, and marks it ready to ship. No human has touched it yet. Every step so far has run by itself, in minutes, triggered by nothing more than you saving your work. Which is the whole magic of automation. The boring, error-prone steps happen the same way every single time. Finally comes continuous delivery, or CD. The release is deployed to production automatically, and then monitored, so you instantly see how it behaves in the real world. And that feedback loops straight back to the start. From a single commit to live in production, with nobody copying files by hand at midnight. So the takeaway? The CI/CD pipeline is how the DevOps loop becomes real. Every commit flows automatically through build, test, release, deploy, and monitor, turning releases from rare, frightening events into a calm, everyday routine. Picture the difference. The old way meant one terrifying release a quarter that the whole company braced for. The new way means dozens of tiny, boring releases a day that nobody even notices. And boring, in production, is exactly what you want. A pipeline needs tools to run it, and this is where the famous DevOps toolchain comes in. There are hundreds of tools out there, but a handful have become the backbone of the whole industry, and each one owns a stage of the loop. Let us meet them. It starts with Git, the source control system where all code lives and every change is tracked. It is the single source of truth that the entire pipeline reacts to. And then Docker, which packages your application together with everything it needs into a container so it runs identically on every machine, and finally kills that old "it works on my machine" excuse for good. Next, Kubernetes, which takes all those containers and orchestrates them across many servers, keeping them running, healing them automatically when they crash, and scaling them up and down under load. And Terraform, which lets you define your entire infrastructure as code. So servers and networks are created reliably from a file, instead of being clicked together by hand and forgotten. And finally, the feedback tools, Prometheus, which continuously measures and monitors how your system is behaving, and Argo, which practices GitOps automatically deploying whatever your Git repository declares should be running. So the takeaway, the toolchain gives you one proven, industry-standard tool for each stage of the loop: Git, Docker, Kubernetes, Terraform, Prometheus, and Argo. And this course will teach you each of them, hands-on, in its proper place. Do not feel you must memorize them all today. Simply notice that every tool exists to serve a stage of the loop. So when you meet it later, you will already know why it is there and what problem it solves. We have seen the practices. Now let us return to the true heart of it, the culture, because tools without culture is just expensive software that changes nothing. DevOps culture is captured in 5 words that spell CALMS. C is for culture, the foundation of everything. Shared ownership between teams, where you build it, you run it, quietly replaces blame, and dev and ops genuinely succeed or fail together. And A is for automation, relentlessly removing the manual, repetitive toil that slows people down and invites human error. L is for lean, borrowed from lean manufacturing, cut waste, work in small batches, and keep work flowing smoothly instead of piling up in big risky heaps. And M is for measurement. You cannot improve what you do not measure. So you let real metrics, not opinions or seniority, guide every decision. And S is for sharing knowledge, tools, and feedback flowing freely across the whole team so that no single person becomes a bottleneck and everyone learns from every success and every failure. So the takeaway, DevOps culture is captured by CALMS: culture, automation, lean, measurement, and sharing. And of these, culture always comes first. The tools only ever work when the mindset is right. Many companies learn this the hard way. They buy every tool on the list, rename a team to DevOps, and change nothing because they installed the software but never adopted the culture, and the wall quietly went back up. So after all of this, the loop, the pipeline, the tools, the culture, what do you actually get in return? Here's the promise that makes DevOps worth every bit of the effort. The first half, your deployment speed goes up dramatically. Teams that adopt DevOps will ship not once a quarter, but many times a day, turning an idea into a live feature in hours instead of months. And here is the part that genuinely surprises people. At the very same time, your stability goes up too. Fewer outages, and when something does break, far faster recovery, precisely because the changes are small, automated, and easy to undo. For decades, the whole industry believed these two were a strict trade-off. You could have speed or you could have stability, but never both. Go faster, and you must break more. DevOps proves that belief wrong. Done well, small frequent changes turn out to be far safer than rare giant ones. So the takeaway, the core promise of DevOps is that speed and stability are not enemies. They rise together, and that is exactly why the world's best-run companies deploy hundreds of times a day with fewer failures, not more. This is not a slogan. It has been measured for years across thousands of organizations, and the research is clear. The elite performers are both the fastest and the most stable at the very same time. Finally, a practical question you probably have. Who actually does DevOps for a living? And could that be you? DevOps is not one job title. It is a culture practiced by a whole family of related roles. The DevOps engineer builds and maintains the pipelines and the tooling, the automation that lets everyone else ship smoothly and safely. And the site reliability engineer, the SRE, owns reliability itself. They set service level objectives, respond to incidents, and use real engineering to keep systems dependable at massive scale. Where a traditional operations team might fight the same fire by hand every night, an SRE writes code to put the fire out automatically and then to stop it ever starting again. The platform engineer builds the internal platform, the paved road, and self-service tools that other developers build upon. And the release engineer makes sure deployments are safe, repeatable, and reversible, so that shipping never becomes a gamble. These are different titles with different focuses, but they all share the one culture we learned today. And this course quietly prepares you for every one of them because the foundations underneath are the same. So the takeaway, DevOps is done by many roles: DevOps engineer, SRE, platform engineer, and release engineer. Different names, one shared culture, and a wide, well-paid field with plenty of room in it for you. Let us gather the whole class in one breath so it locks into memory. The old world, dev and ops siloed by a wall of confusion, one side wanting change, the other stability. The history, software delivery evolved from Waterfall to Agile to DevOps. DevOps itself, not a tool, but a culture and a set of practices drawn as one continuous loop. The CICD pipeline, how that loop becomes real, carrying every commit automatically through build, test, release, deploy, and monitor. The comms culture and the toolchain culture, automation, lean, measurement, and sharing, served by Git, Docker, Kubernetes, and more. And the promise that speed and stability rise together, never traded off. Next class, the DevOps lifecycle and the toolchain map, in depth, one idea at a time. Tear down the wall. DevOps began as a simple rebellion against the war between building software and running it. A war that made everyone slower, angrier, and more afraid of change than they needed to be. Its answer was not a product you could buy, but a new way of working. Make dev and ops one team, sharing a single continuous loop from plan to code to deploy to monitor and back to plan again. That culture is captured in 5 words: comms, culture, automation, lean, measurement, and sharing. And his promise quietly breaks an old myth, proving that speed and stability rise together instead of trading off. That is the real secret behind companies that deploy hundreds of times a day with fewer outages, not more. From here, we go hands-on, the lifecycle, the pipelines, the containers, and the cloud that make it all run. Next class, the DevOps lifecycle and toolchain map. One idea at a time. Let us tear down the wall.